Howdy gang, Dr. Sean here. Out of kind of a feeling of a responsibility, I felt like I might make a few comments about the coronavirus situation and exactly where we are this particular moment. I've been pretty much quiet for the most part, except in some small circles. Even back in the day, I decided that I wasn't going to be out talking about the major popular items, like if somebody famous has a stroke, and just because I'm a neurologist now, I want to talk about stroke. And so I've always avoided these topics for the most part. But, you know, it has become clear that we are having a challenging discourse, and I empathize with people that feel the need and want to get back to work. And I also feel empathy for people that are concerned about lifting the restrictions and moving forward. I can see both sides. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, as well as a physician, and I like being busy. I don't like restrictions. I don't like borders and walls, and I don't like a whole lot of bureaucracy myself. So it feels very unnatural. But at the same time, I like to definitely see people doing well and doing healthy and winning, enjoying victorious health. And so I like both of those approaches. We've been through a lot and we've learned a lot. I mean, my overall message is that we can do this, and we can do it well, and we can be healthy and do it at the same time if we're very mindful. I should say that I think that we needed the pause. However, we've learned a lot on the go. When all of this got started, I'll never forget, and I was just reminiscing this with my wife over the past 24 hours, even just last evening. She was just coming back from India, and I was thinking, okay, once she hits the ground here, I'm going to have to fill her up to date, get her up to speed on what's happening, because things were happening here in America that were not happening in India at the same time. And suddenly things were getting canceled, meetings, formals, national meetings, just everything was starting to get canceled once she arrived. And but at that time, the information was it was completely different in ways. I mean, one is that remember when we thought that the main people that were going to be affected were those living with emphysema and COPD and asthma, people with chronic lung conditions. I mean, it was the best information that we had coming out of China. And now we're in a completely different place. We're not talking about those patients anymore. We're talking about people that have diabetes and high blood pressure, obesity. We know that the condition seems to affect people that are closer together, sort of the New York City, those in urban environments more so. These were not the same concerns that we were anticipating necessarily way back in February. I say way back, but a lot has happened in a short period of time during our restriction. And I would suggest that we needed to take a pause to learn all of this. I remember being on some doctors groups. I mean, I'm still on some doctors groups on Facebook and various places where there are 20,000, 30,000 doctors, even some groups where they're just hospitalists. And in some of these arenas, we'd be having discussions that this was the calm before the storm, because we stopped doing elective procedures, and we were all learning what is exactly our responsibility, how are we going to protect ourselves, what is the actual procedure. When my wife got back, she was actually saying that she was going to wear an N95 and a mask to see every patient. And then at that time, she was actually reprimanded that if you do that, you're going to scare people, so don't do that. And now we're all wearing masks in most every hospital all day long, you see. So we've really learned a lot over a short period of time. We've been learning on the go. I've spoken to critical care doctors who are describing firsts, things that they've never seen in their career. I've certainly seen things that I've never seen in my career. Basically, we've come a long way. But we have the people that are learning and seeing all of this are people that are working in hospitals, people that are watching very closely and doing research. I've noticed people that are actually sick with the condition themselves and very close family members. And then you have hospital administrators who are closely having to learn all of this and manage the resources. So really what you have are people that are living a certain reality inside the hospital and very closely related to the hospital, like first responders, and then those patients and those families. And then you have everybody else, which is really the majority of the public, who is not really seeing all of the vast sort of upside down effect that we're living in the hospital. So the people on the outside of the hospital are asking, is all of this really necessary? Is there anything really different? Because mostly, I even feel it myself. When I get off of work, birds are chirping, cars are still out, people still walking around, and it looks like an entirely different world than inside of the hospital. And so I totally get it, how you can have two different conversations going on, and they seem so discordant, really. I mean, let's face it. When 9/11 hit, I'll never forget that I was actually examining a patient. I had my stethoscope on. It was in the morning. My stethoscope was on her chest. The patient's TV was on, and she was saying, "Oh my God." And then I looked up at the television and I could see what was going. It was just something so bizarre, but we all lived it together. It was just something we all lived together at the same time. It wasn't that a small minority or of patients was looking at this. I'm sorry, of Americans or people were looking at this, and then some people didn't experience it. We all experienced it, and we all saw it, and none of us questioned what was actually going on, even though we compare the damage to 9/11. But the experience itself is not comparable in that some people are looking at it and it's gross and abnormal and weird, even people that are seasoned veterans practicing medicine. And then you have other groups of Americans are saying, this is all crazy, So I think that this has created a lot of the challenges with conversations that we are having. And they're real challenges, especially during this time when there's not a lot of trust, and there's hyper-partisanship and a very charged political atmosphere. At a time when we really need to trust each other and work together, you have a scenario that we're all experiencing different things. And so the people that are not looking at it are having a hard time justifying all of these. Now, having acknowledged all of this, I think that there's some good news in all of it, though. During this time of pause and this time of stopping to study what the heck is happening and how do we address it, it occurred to me yesterday when I was walking through the intensive care unit. There was one patient who was clearly COVID positive, and one of the nurses was sitting in the patient's room, properly gowned, had an N95 on. She had a surgical mask on that, and she also had a face shield covering her eyes. She had covering of her hair. There was no part of her that was showing. She looked up and we waved. The patient was on dialysis, and it occurred to me that she's comfortably sitting there with this patient. She could have been outside the room sitting, but it reflected what we've learned. We know how to keep ourselves safe even when we are in the middle of taking care of patients. I mean, we're in a room that's closed, the door is closed, and a patient's positive. The patient had a face mask on too. However, this nurse was sitting and reading notes and taking care of this patient. It really showed exactly how far we had come, because there was a time when we were all completely flustered because it was the unknown. The good news is that if we take that information and we're aware of it, and that's really the point of this video, if we take that information and apply it to life outside of the hospital, then there is a way that we can get busier again while maintaining safety. Essentially, what I was describing with the nurse is that she had a lot of barriers up to keep herself safe. If we can do it in the hospital, then there's a way that we can apply it and stay safe outside of the hospital too. And none of this is new. It's just what I'm offering and what I'm trying to convince you of is a perspective that we have in the hospital, and that we can remain safe. So as we start to move about, we need certain barriers, and we can employ certain barriers. Some of these barriers will be distance, like 6 feet, when we're able. When we're not able, then we need other barriers, like a mask, worn by most folks most of the times, especially where we cannot avoid being in the same, sharing the same breathing space. And keep moving. Everybody keeps moving when we're inside the hospital. You don't have people sitting down around a small table. I don't see that happening in the hospital. So I wouldn't do it outside of the hospital, except with family and people that we're really intimately pretty close with. Hygiene is a big deal. Cleaning surfaces, hand surfaces, really all surfaces that are high touch surfaces, doorknobs, light switches, handrails. These are all things that I'm consciously aware of when I'm in the hospital. I'm going down the stairs. I want to keep from falling down the stairs, but I don't want to really like hold on to the handrail and just slide my hand all the way down until I get to the bottom like I would ordinarily. It's not the time for that. Take my time. I take my time now and go down the stairs so that I don't have to really be touching a whole bunch of handrails. I'm conscientious about when I'm touching doorknobs, and then I just frequently wash the surfaces of my hands and all of these places when I'm at home. I use more hot water than I used to. I use more bleach and Clorox on all of these surfaces than I used to. There's a way that we can remain safe, but I wanted to communicate these ideas because we are having different experiences, and some of us will be more aware of what's going on because we're closer to the experience than people that are not close to the experience. And so it's really two realities, but the virus is not going to distinguish between who knows and who doesn't know. So it's going to end up making the people who are not aware more susceptible because they're not expecting it. They really haven't been close to this. Anyway, so I really just wanted to come on and give a couple of ideas of how most of us continue to win, and we're all connected. Basically, I mean, if I'm aware because I am working in a hospital and taking care of patients with COVID, and because my wife isn't, because we're talking about this and living it every day, the people we work with, but you're not, it's still going to affect us all, because the fact of the matter is that we'll be at a football game together, we'll be out in public together. If you're having a problem and we're sharing space, your family, we're all connected, and it's awesome. It'll be wonderful if we can look back and say that we all did well together, and that we were all victorious together, and that we were all working together toward the well-being for one another. Okay, guys, take care and keep winning. Sorry for this long